and welcome to the Abundant Self Podcast, a podcast where we talk about everything there is to learn and to know about what it truly means to have life and life in abundance. My name is Sharon Chebai, and thank you so much for tuning in. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time it is that you're tuning in to today's episode. I hope you are well and staying safe wherever it is that you are. If this is your very first time here, my good name is Sharon Chebai, and welcome to the Abundant Self Podcast. Yes, thank you so much for joining me here today for this episode. Thank you for just tuning in. I mean, we had mentioned in the previous episode that we were taking a short break for the last couple weeks here on the podcast, just taking time to think about life, rethink about our priorities, about my priorities rather, and just to think about what I was seeing or what my vision was for this next season of the podcast and even of my life personally as an individual, just to rejuvenate, to recuperate from the year. I mean, it's November and by next week already it's going to be December. And it's usually around this time that people like to just take a short break, think about life, think about what's been happening and what they need to change, what they need to remove, what they need to add in their lives, and so on and so forth. And so it was also very timely for us to just take a few days, weeks to just also think about the same thing, reevaluate even why I started the podcast, and what I was seeing this podcast growing and becoming into in the years to come as God wills it. So yeah, welcome. You being here, tuning into this episode is proof that you want to have an abundant life, that you are also in support of this vision, that none of us was created to eat, sleep, pay bills and die, and that we have been called to do so much, to do much greater things than we can possibly imagine. So thank you for being here today. This is episode 8 of the podcast, and we are going to be talking about burnout. Yes, we are going to be talking about burnout, and most specifically why it is important to learn to say no. Yeah, so just to get right onto it without any further ado. So one of the other reasons why I also decided to take a short break on the podcast is also because of burnout. I was feeling very burnout this past month, and I hadn't realized it because, burnout is not something that generally hoops on you. Like, you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh my days, I'm burnout. It doesn't happen like that, but it's usually something that happens gradually, and usually it's maybe as a result of the decisions you're making, of the choices you're making, certain red flags, certain things that you're overlooking that you should actually be paying attention to, ignoring them, overlooking some things, and then it now grows into burnout. And of course, when this happens, you feel very overwhelmed. You feel like you do not even have the energy to do the things that would usually get you so excited doing. Like for me, for the podcast, it's something, every time I think about recording an episode, every time I think about showing up for my listener, for you who is listening right now, it's usually something that really, really gets my energy all the way up. Like, I could have a ton of things that I'm supposed to do, and the podcast is one of them. Recording an episode is one of them, and I can assure you that even if I would have been dragging myself the whole day, when it's time for me to record an episode, I always get so excited. And so when you start feeling burnout, activities like that would generally make you feel like you don't want to even do the things that usually get you excited. For me, it's the podcast. For you, it could be something else, something you actually enjoy doing. And when you're burnout, imagine you don't even have the energy, you don't even have the motivation to get up and do it. Now, the first time I actually experienced burnout was when I had just started the blog Chebai by Spen, which was 4 years ago. I was still in campus, and I was so excited because this is something that I had been thinking about for a very long time. And as you already know, if you've listened to my previous episodes, when I started Chebai by Span, it was because I needed to have an outlet for all the many thoughts and ideas that that usually would keep me up at night, So I decided, and especially since I had already always loved telling stories, initially enjoyed writing my own novels and stuff. I thought, why not just have a website where my stories would not just be limited to the people around me, but people all over the world would actually get access to what intrigues me, what keeps me up at night, and just try and see if, the things that keep me up at night, things like abundance, if they're also things that keep other people up at night, So during this time, I was, of course, I'm in campus, I have classes, and I don't know if it was in my second or third year. And usually around that time, of course, now the coursework is intense, projects, and then there's so many other things that I was involved with. And now I was starting a blog. And I had all this many ideas, all this many things that I wanted to write and talk about. And then boom, I just got burnout. And writing a blog post every other week became, sort of, I don't even know what to call it. It became something that I wasn't doing it because I enjoy it, but it became sort of like a job, where, for example, for people who, it's unfortunate, who do not enjoy their jobs, they have to just get up and go to work, not because they actually want to go to work and because they love what they do, but because, it's something that they have to do because maybe they need to get paid at the end of the month. So for me, with my blog, it wasn't even because, it's not like someone who had pointed a gun to my head and told me that I have to publish a blog post every week, but imagine that is where nilikuwa nimefika. I had gotten to that point where, imagine when I know I'm supposed to post a blog on the website, I would get so frustrated. I want to procrastinate. I want to do other things because it wasn't something that was, coming naturally to me anymore. And it's not that I did not enjoy blogging. It's the very reason why I decided to start a blog is because I really wanted to let my voice be heard by the whole world and to inspire other people with not only the things that I had gone through, but the things that other people had gone through. But now at this point, I just couldn't do it. I would push it, just say, what, I'll just write that blog post any other day. Or even when I have to write something, I look for something else to do and on and on. So that is usually what happens with burnout. And it's generally just characterized by combined feelings of it could be mental, emotional, and even physical exhaustion that are usually a result of prolonged or excessive stress. So it could be maybe because of your career. For me at the time, it was creator burnout, I have so many ideas that I want to put together. I want to do so many things all at once that I get burnout, that I don't even have the energy to even go ahead and do what it is that I want to do. And this is something that I really struggled with for a long time. And I even wrote about it on my blog, actually. So you can go read more about it. And I actually had a friend of mine, her name is Amisa, to just come on board and share also on her experience on burnout, how she was able to handle it. And especially since she is a psychologist, she also helped me to understand how do you identify when you have burnout and also how to handle it, how to deal with it. And just to now narrow down to the conversation of today, is one of the reasons, or rather one of the causes of burnout, something that we found out was that when you are used to saying yes to everything, when you are always constantly saying yes and agreeing to everything that is thrown your way, how that can actually lead to burnout. And now that is what happened to me this year. And that is actually what led to my burnout, what led me to even just think about, okay, maybe it's just time I take a break. Maybe it's time I press pause. I think about my life, think about my priorities, think about the things that I have said yes to and whether or not they actually align to my goals, to my values. And so how it happened is that, so if you have already listened to the very first few episodes of this podcast, you already know that sometime early this year, I decided to quit my job. And it was, of course, due to a couple of reasons. You can go check out those episodes and find out. And I remember when I quit my job, something that was happening. When I think about it, by the way, I don't even know how. It was like I had stepped in from the frying pan and into the fire, because I remember I was telling one of my friends, I cannot imagine how busy I have been, and yet I quit my job. You'd think that because I had quit my job, that somehow I would have, free time. I would have enough time on my hands to do whatever it is that I wanted. But then it actually became quite the opposite, because I actually felt that I was even more busy than I was when I had a job. All right. So during this time, I remember after I quit my job, something that I was really, really thinking about was, how do I fill up my free time with, just things that, I need to be doing? How do I fill up my free time? Whether it's with the organization that I volunteer for, whether it's with the podcast, whether it's with the blog, whether it's with, what was it? I cannot remember. There was a program that I actually signed up for while I still had a job. And it was, I think it is actually a 6 to 8 month learning program. It's actually ending in December. And I was just thinking, I really need to fill up my free time. I really need to think about what I can do that will help me to just be busy, stay busy. Because again, if you have listened to my very first episode, you already know, and I've mentioned this time and time again, that in the past, or rather even right now, a lot of my identity has come from what I am doing. And when I lost my job, or rather when I quit my job, I didn't realize that a huge part of my identity sort of took a blow, because it became an issue of, so who am I right now that I do not have a job, Like, okay, so how am I even going to be introducing myself? What will I be saying? What do I do? And people are saying, my name is so-and-so and I work as this, or my name is so-and-so and this is what I do. What exactly am I going to be saying? And that really ate me up for a long time. And subconsciously, I was really looking for things to do. And funny enough, I did get things that I needed to do. Like I said, I had the learning program that is still ongoing. I started the podcast months later. I have other things that I do, the organization that I volunteer for. I am an active participant. There's so many things that I was doing. And without realizing it, I had been, chewing or rather biting more than I can chew. So I really had a lot on my plate, and I hadn't realized that I really needed to just take a few months or even weeks or even days to just, first of all, just rest. Because let me tell you, being in corporate, and especially since I was working, I think I wasn't even working 8 hours. I think I was even working 10 hours a day. I was super exhausted mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I was exhausted, and I really needed, during that time when I quit my job, I really needed to take a break. I really needed to just press pause, to just rest and just get new energy, new energy to go ahead and pursue and even see what exactly lay ahead for me, in my future and stuff. So, just thinking about it and how I decided to take up so many things. Man, let me tell you, I think some things I even dropped off along the way, but still, even when I look at my plate right now, I feel like I still do have a lot of things on my plate. And some of these things, now that I have already committed to them, I really cannot just say that I can't do it anymore, because imagine I have already told this person that I'm going to do this, or I have already committed to be doing this, this and that over a certain period of time. I just can't wake up. That is something that I have been thinking about. Can I really just wake up one morning and tell this person that, no, I can't do it. And yet I had actually committed to do it, So these are some of the things that actually led to my burnout, because I found myself saying yes to a lot of things, because in my mind, I wasn't really thinking about how much work or how much I'm taking on. What I was thinking about was, I really need to fill up my free time. And without realizing it, I had actually filled up my free time, so much so that I didn't even have time to rest. Personally, I didn't even have time for other things that maybe I needed to do, that I need to do. Because at the end of the day, these activities that I'm saying yes to, these people that I'm saying yes to, I have to show up for them, And if I am exhausted, if I am feeling burnout and overwhelmed, how exactly am I going to show up for these people? How exactly am I going to give my best? And if there's something that has been running through my mind, I think this year, something that has been really strong in me is how I really seriously want to stop being, or rather entertaining, mediocrity in my life. Mediocrity in the sense that I really want to stop doing things for the sake of doing them, or just doing things because I have to do them, or just for the sake of doing them. And what people might call the bare minimum. I mean, think about it. In our workplaces, wherever it is, this thing of doing the bare minimum has been propagated a lot. And for me, I've just been thinking, why? Why should I have to do the bare minimum? Where when someone gives you something to do, you only do it up to a certain level. You don't even go above and beyond to give it your best, to make it excellent, to give it excellence, the excellence it deserves, rather. So it is something that I've been really thinking about, and that is something that is really strong in me, where if I have committed to do something, I have to do it excellently. I just can't do it because I said yes to do it. I just can't do it for the sake of doing it because I told someone, yes, I can actually do this thing for you. I'm actually capable and able to do the work that you've given me, but I want to give it my best. And being a follower of Jesus, God is a God of excellence. I mean, look at the world. Look at myself. Look at you. You are an excellent creation of God. The world He created is excellent. Everything that God does is excellent. And so as a child of God, God also expects of me to be excellent. The Bible says that whatever it is you find to do with your hands, do it as unto the Lord. And the only way you can do it as unto the Lord is doing it excellently, So, back to me saying yes. When I was saying yes, even after I have said yes, I know, by the way, just because I've told this person I'm going to do it, I really seriously have to show up for it. And if I have to give it my best, if I have to do the work excellently, I need to be refreshed. I cannot be overwhelmed, because let's face it, when you're tired, when you're not at your best, there's no way you're going to give your best. And that's the truth of the matter. And so, without realizing it, or rather without knowing it, I just ended up piling so much on my plate. And I was so burnt out, let me tell you. Have you ever woken up in the morning? There is so much that you need to do. And usually, even when I was saying yes to do these things, because I would never say yes to things I don't enjoy doing, by the way. Let me just put that out there. First of all, I would never say yes to do something that I don't enjoy doing. Every opportunity I have said yes to, every even learning program that I have signed up for, usually is because I would actually enjoy it. It's something that I actually want to do. It's something that I know would be of benefit, not just to me, but to the other person. And especially when I'm working with other people, when people ask me to do certain work for them, I know that this person, the reason they approached me is because they trust in my abilities and they know that I can actually be able to get the work done, right? And for me, I know the opportunity that is being offered to me is one that is going to help me grow, either professionally, individually, whatever it is. And I'm also going to be, it's also going to be a win for the other person. It's a win-win situation. So most of the time when I say yes to these things, it's actually because I really want them and it's things I actually enjoy doing. But when it got to a point where I was just waking up in the morning and I just know there are things I have to do, but I just want to curl up, go back in bed and just sleep and not even think about it. procrastinating. Oh my days. Saying that you'll do it at a later time, or saying that you'll do it another day, and then just time goes by. And just hiding from these things, it doesn't make them go away. Even if I decided to sleep for a whole 2 weeks without doing the work, it doesn't mean that the work will also eventually disappear. In fact, if anything, it just makes the work pile up on each other all the more. Yeah? So saying yes all the time, I mean, let me tell you, when people say that you need to learn how to say no, it's something that people just like to say. We just like to say, yes, you need to learn how to say no. You need to be assertive. You need to be firm about it. You need to set boundaries. But most of the time, all these things, they're usually easier said than done. I went back and I was just thinking about, okay, so why exactly, other than, of course, saying yes to things that I would actually enjoy doing, I went back and just really thought about it. So why exactly was I saying yes to these things? Of course, the main reason was because I had quit my job and I needed to fill up my free time. But then there was also the part of, despite the fact that, yes, I did enjoy these things and there were things I would actually love to do for people or even for myself, whatever it is. There's also the part where when someone would ask me, especially at a point where I know, by the way, I already have too much on my plate. Sometimes it would be because I do not want to disappoint this other person. When someone tells me, Chebaibai, do you mind maybe doing a certain project with me or for me or helping me do a certain project? Sometimes I would be like, hey, this person, the reason they have even approached me is because, like I said, they believe in my abilities and they trust that I'll be able to help them. So at that point, even if I have so much to do, I would find myself saying yes because I didn't want to disappoint the other person. The other thing was fear of missing out. And this is something that I have seriously dealt with this year, where I have been thinking about, especially when I quit my job, I was thinking about, so what happens to my career? What happens to me as a professional? Like, what opportunities am I missing out on because I do not have a job? And now I would grab onto online courses. I would grab onto so many things, so many opportunities, so many activities, because I really felt that if I don't do it, I'll miss out because the people who are maybe either in corporate, they're doing way better than me and I really need to keep up, So that fear of missing out. Sometimes, but I think I've come to learn that FOMO doesn't have to be you fear missing out on parties or you fear missing out on hangouts and stuff. It's just usually, it can even be about opportunities where you take on as many courses as online courses as possible because you think, maybe if I don't take this course, maybe I won't get that job, I won't do this. It's so funny, actually. So a friend of mine posted on his Twitter how he posted a photo of a kid who had eaten so many apples. Actually, it wasn't even eating. He had taken a bite of so many apples and they were just lying there on the floor. And the meme, I think, was something about how all those unfinished online courses are just staring at him to finish, And I was just thinking, oh my days, this is just me. There's so many things you start because you fear missing out on maybe what the world has to offer. And when you think about it, that is actually a scarcity mindset, because who says that if you don't take a certain course, who says that if you don't take part in certain activities, that such opportunities will never present themselves again? Who said that? And that is something that we can talk about in another episode. But yes, FOMO. I was saying yes because I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity, because I thought if I don't say yes now, maybe this person will never approach me for any other opportunity they have, which is not true. It is not true. Then, like I said, just wanting to be busy and just looking like I have stuff going on in my life because, hey, you guys, when you don't have a job, especially for me, the fact that I moved back home and my friends, they still have their jobs, people are getting promoted, people are doing A, B, C, and D. And, when every time you tell someone you quit your job, the next thing they ask you is what next? So what's next for you? So Are you looking for a job? I mean, what are you doing? People can never really understand or believe that someone is just doing nothing. You just can't be doing nothing. Surely there has to be something you're doing even while you are looking for a job. I'm sure you relate to this if you've gone through that before. And so even most of the time when I was taking on these things, it was because, I just wanted to say, yeah, I quit my job. So right now I'm just doing this, and that. I didn't want to have that sentence blank where I don't do anything. Where when I'm introducing myself or sharing or talking to people that I just quit my job and I'm not doing anything. I'm not even looking for a job. Would people really understand that? Is that something that people would really understand? So such like things. So by saying yes, you've realized, or rather by saying yes all the time, because remember, we are not saying that you don't say yes to opportunities, you don't say yes to activities or whatever it is that is meant for your growth. That's not what we are saying. We're saying it's important to learn when to say yes and when to say no. Sometimes it's just equally just as important for you to say no and say, you know what, thank you for trusting me and for believing that I can do this for you. But right now I have too much on my plate. Maybe I can either refer you to someone else or maybe just look for someone else to do that for you, And it doesn't take anything away from you. It doesn't mean that the other person will never approach you with another opportunity again, because your abilities, your skills, they're not going anywhere, by the way. If you are good at what you do, it doesn't mean that if you say no to a certain job opportunity or if you say no to a certain collaboration, that will be the end of it, that there will not be any other opportunities that open up for you. No, it just means that you're learning how to also prioritize your needs over other people's needs. Because when you say yes all the time, what you do is that you're prioritizing the other person's needs over your own. Especially for me, where I was saying yes to almost everything, even when already I knew at the back of my mind, by the way, Chebaiba, you already have enough on your plate. Maybe it's just time to just press pause and send people to other people or recommend other people for the same jobs you're being given. But that thing of just grabbing onto everything, saying yes to everything, honestly, I don't think it's even healthy. Because when you get to that point when you're burnout, where you're feeling emotionally, physically, mentally exhausted, how can you honestly, give attention to what really matters? To yourself, to your family? How can you even be present? Because sometimes we find that we are so busy chasing after money, busy chasing after opportunities, busy chasing after this and that you're not even able to sit down, to just be present, to enjoy each and every moment that life gives to us. Because the truth of the matter is, by the way, none of us knows when the time on this earth is going to be done, unless it has been revealed to you. But me, it hasn't, by the way. Me, I don't know when I'm going to die. But the point is, you can't just be chasing after so many things, so many opportunities, or rather just being on the chase all the time, that you forget to take care of yourself, that you forget to even enjoy the simple things that life has to offer. As I'm saying this, I'm remembering there's a K-drama. There's a K-drama that I've just finished watching. It's called Extraordinary Attorney Woo-Woo, I think. It's on Netflix. And so it's a story about an autistic lawyer who, of course, is extraordinary, as the title says. And so one of the attorneys where she works, or rather one of the attorneys at the law firm where she works, is, of course, the supervisor. Actually, the guy is her supervisor, and his story was that he had been married previously, but then he got divorced because even while he was on his honeymoon, he was busy working, he was busy chasing after cases, for his law firm. He was busy doing so many things that he wasn't even present to just enjoy even his honeymoon with his wife, enjoy his wedding, enjoy his marriage. So he was always constantly busy working, always busy, that the only time he actually realized that he needed to press pause, that he needed to take a break, that he actually started even paying attention to his ex-wife, because the ex-wife was still in his life, was when he was diagnosed with stomach cancer, and it was really bad. It was like stage 4, and he ended up in hospital. That's the time when he was now thinking about, maybe I should just leave the farm, maybe I should just do something else, just live life and just enjoy what life has to offer. And you see, that's what happens with burnout and saying yes to everything all the time, because you keep on taking so much in the name of being busy, in the name of, looking like you have stuff going on in your life, that you actually forget that, there are actually the simple things that life has to offer that you need to enjoy. Being with your family, being with yourself, being with your loved ones. There's so much that life has to offer. But imagine you will not even enjoy that when you burn out, because the things that you'd normally enjoy doing, whether it's traveling, whether it's being with your friends, whatever it is, even the work that you do, even professionally, especially if you are in a profession that you are really passionate about and enjoy, trust me, you won't even have the energy or the motivation to enjoy those things, because you'll be so exhausted. And why? Why do we have to get to that point? Get to that point when things are actually falling apart, when we are actually crashing, when we are actually breaking down, that we realize, that we actually tell ourselves that we need to take a break. It doesn't have to get to that point. Your car doesn't need to break down for you to realize that you need to you need to take it for servicing, that you need to take care of it. You yourself don't need to break down for you to realize that you need to take a break, that you need to press pause, that you need to learn how to say no. But it has to be something, it needs to be a system that we have integrated in our lives, where we know that up to a certain point, I need to say no. There's only so much that I can handle. And once we get to such a point, honestly, then we can live a life of abundance, because we won't be limited. Even achieving work-life balance, whatever it is, it's going to be possible for you to do the work that you're meant to do, enjoy life, enjoy being with your loved ones, enjoy even spending time with yourself, whatever it is, finding and scheduling time for breaks, taking rest, whatever it is. Only then can we really enjoy what life has to offer and enjoy it in full. Yeah? So, like I said, when I was writing in my blog post about about burnout, I had come across, what are some of the causes of burnout? And I remember I was talking with Amisa, my friend, who helped me with the blog post. She was talking about how sometimes personality, your personality can be the reason why you have burnouts. Yeah. So either whether you are a workaholic, overachiever, whatever it is, and also if you're a people pleaser. And let's face it, when you're always constantly saying yes to people, it means you are someone who likes to please people. And what does that do to you? When you're constantly pleasing people and prioritizing other people's needs over your own. I think there's this quote that says, when we're always saying yes, it actually says, be careful that when you are saying yes to others, you are not saying no to yourself. Because for me, I know for some time, every time I keep saying yes, and it usually comes and bites me in the back, because I'm always thinking, why did I have to say yes to this? Why did I have to agree to this? Just because I wanted to please the other person, just because I wanted to not disappoint them. Well, is that a good enough reason why I need to just say yes and please the other person and overlook the fact that I will be exhausted? I won't have enough time to take care of myself, to do whatever it is that I want to do. Yeah? So how exactly do we now stop this? For me, I know it has been something that has been in my mind. How do I stop saying yes all the time and, just learning to say no? And I think first things first, of course, as always, it's a self-awareness. You need to know yourself. If you know yourself, if you know your habits, your triggers, if you know the things that usually, if you know the ways how do I put this? Sometimes someone can offer something to you, an opportunity to you, and usually there's something maybe they'll say that will make you say yes, or that maybe it's if it's being guilt tripped or something. Sometimes you find that someone can say something and you just feel, hey, by the way, if I don't say yes, I'll feel guilty. And maybe you don't even need to say yes. Imagine you're just there thinking, I don't want to disappoint this person. If I say no, I'll feel guilty, and maybe this person will not look at me the same way again. I mean, you need to know all those things. If you're such kind of person, once you know yourself, once it happens, you'll be able to catch yourself even before you say yes. Like for me, I know there are certain triggers that I have when someone is offering me a certain opportunity or asking me to help them do something. There's something that I can say that even if I was thinking about saying no, eventually I'll just find myself saying yes. So you need to know yourself. What are your triggers? What are some of the things that usually prevent you from saying no? What if it's an opportunity? Even if it's a person, sometimes there are people that by the way, I don't know how to say no to this person. I don't know how to say no to this person, even if what they're telling me to do is something that I know for a fact, yes, I can do, or you can't do, or you can do, but you still have so much on your plate. But because it's them, you don't know how to say no to them. So you need to know that first. That's the first step you can take to even learn how to say no. So that even if it's this person, you're like, by the way, Mimi, I know that you really want me to do this, and I know I've never said no to you before, but imagine, let me just say no for... Honestly, it's just something that we need to think about. And yeah, you never know, by the way. Sometimes people can see you. Even sometimes you find that people even approach you to help them do stuff because they know you'll say yes. Sometimes you find that people have gotten so used to the fact that you're a yes man. You're the person who will always say yes, yes, yes. Chebebe, can you do this for me? Yes. Chebebe, can you help me do this? Yes. This, that, yes, yes, yes. Because sometimes people just come to you because they know you're just going to say yes. Why don't you surprise them? Surprise them and surprise yourself as well. Number 2 is just prioritize. Prioritize your values. Prioritize what you give your time to. Prioritize what you will not give your time to. So that even when you find yourself in situations where there's too much work that is being given to you, or maybe there's too much going on in your life, you can prioritize what needs to be done, what you can do, and even prioritize what you do not have to do. Yeah? And of course, just learning how to say no without that fear of disappointing the other person. Honestly, you need to learn how to be confident in yourself, how to be confident in your choices. That if someone tells you to help them do this, when you say no, be confident that, by the way, I'm saying no because I know I can't do it. Even if I can do it, not now. Definitely not now. Because once you trust yourself, once you trust your choices and decisions, trust me, it's not going to be hard for you to say no. And also, you won't even have to feel guilty because you know that you're being authentic. Yes, you're being authentic. You're not doing it to please the other person. You're not doing it because you want to gain any special favors or whatever it is. But the reason you're saying no is because it's not in line with what you need to do. And you also know why you yourself are saying no. Maybe even the other person may not understand. The other person might see as if after you even have a lot of time in your hands and even wonder, why is this person saying no to me and they don't even have anything else they're doing? You yourself know why you need to say no. And when you trust yourself, when you trust your own choices, when you trust your own decisions, then you won't even feel guilty. You won't feel bad about disappointing other people because, trust me, it's not your job to make everyone happy. It is not your job to make everyone happy. You need to learn how to take care of yourself. And one of the ways you can take care of yourself is by saying no. Yeah? So saying yes all the time, trust me, it can lead to your downfall. It can lead to your downfall, and we do not want that. We want to be able to show up for, whatever opportunities, the right opportunities that come our way, because when sometimes you may be burnt out and actually an opportunity maybe that you have actually been waiting for, something that you have really always hoped and dreamed of comes your way, and you find that you don't even have the energy to take it on, just because you're burnt out. Surely that should not be said of you, and it definitely should not be said of me as well. So there's a quote that I came across when I was prepping for this episode, and allow me to just read it. It says, "Stop saying yes to everything and to everyone. Stop agreeing with people just so you don't upset them. You are not a pushover. You were not put on this earth to be stressed and miserable so others can be relaxed and happy. Start protecting your time and your happiness." I mean, that part of the quote, honestly, it really spoke to me, because most of the time when we take on so many things, when you're always saying yes to everything and to everyone, you find that you end up stressed, you end up miserable, while the other person is just relaxed and happy because they know, at least I know Chebaiba is taking care of it, or it's being taken care of. But you're there, you're miserable, you're feeling stressed, you're burnout. Surely that should not be said of you. Yeah, so you need to learn. Actually, by saying no, you are learning how to protect your time and also your happiness and your well-being. At the end of the day, there are things, you need to show up for these things excellently. You need to show up to work. You need to show up for your passion project. For like myself, for example, I need to show up for this podcast, to show up for you, energetic, feeling inspired by even what I'm talking about, because I know it's the only way that I can be able to transfer this energy over to you, even as you listen to this. But when I'm burnt out, when I'm overwhelmed, when I'm exhausted, how exactly will I be able to do that? So yes, that is definitely something to think about. And of course, if you want to learn more about burnout, be sure to go and check out the blog that is Chebaiba's Pen. I have left a link to that on the show notes. So what am I learning? So if you have been here, I think for the last couple of episodes, I think 4 or 3 episodes, I introduced a segment, What Am I Learning? And usually what I do on this segment is just talk about the things that I have been learning, even as I try and inspire, motivate, and educate you as my listener. Remember, as I said, this podcast is all about just you and I doing life together. So even as I motivate you, it's also important for me to share with you some of the things that I've been learning, some of the things that have been speaking to my heart and to my spirit. So this couple of weeks, my friends and I have been doing fellowship every other week, where we just meet and talk about Jesus, talk about who he is and what he is all about. And it has really been an interesting and, of course, nourishing experience for me as an individual. And usually before we even start the fellowship, we like to just take a few minutes and just catch up with each other, ask ourselves, how our week has been, what we have been doing, what we have been learning. And then one of my friends talked about how there's something he had believed about his life for a very long time, and he read one of our friends' books, and that belief system, or rather that thought, that that thought process rather, was really challenged, and he really had to change it. And he was saying it was really difficult because this is something that he had believed for a very long time in his life. I'm not going to mention exactly what it is, but this is something that he had really believed to be true for a very, very long time in his life. And then, of course, all it took was reading our friend's book that changed that whole perspective, and he has now embraced a new, better belief system. And I think what I have been learning even from that experience is that how it is okay. In fact, it is very necessary for us to change our belief systems, because remember, as a man thinketh, so he is. The kind of mindsets that we have, the kind of belief systems that we have usually shape the kind of people we are. They shape the kind of things, the kind of opportunities, whatever you want to call it. They actually shape the kind of life that you live, And sometimes you find that we have adopted unhealthy belief systems, either because of our socialization, our environment, the things that we read, the places, the people that we associate ourselves with. And most of the time we do not know it until maybe we get an aha moment, whether it's in a book, whether it's in a podcast, whether it's in a preaching, whatever it is. And usually at that particular moment, it is very important for us to make a decision whether we are still going to adopt that unhealthy belief system, or we are going to change it and take on a new and healthy and a renewed belief system. And so I was really thinking about, I remember when he asked that, because he also asked us, are there things that you have believed for a long time that, are now beginning to change? And for me, something that I have believed for a very long time, I have always believed that, every time I let other people either celebrate my successes, or even for me to just own my success, own my achievements, I have always believed that when I do that and when I let other people celebrate me, that I'd be very proudful. I'd be full of pride. I'd be full of, self, just feeling better than other people. That is something that I have really believed for a long time. And of course, that is usually a manifestation of imposter syndrome, where even though you have great numerous achievements, you don't really believe that they're because of your abilities, or that you are actually good enough to achieve those things. Instead, you believe and think that, other people are just commending you because they're your friends, or they're giving you accolades because they're your friends, or because they like you, and they're not actually telling you the truth, And so the reason I this came to my realization was actually just 2 weeks ago. I started serving in church in the media team. And so when I was going through training for the department that I wanted to serve in, the person who was training me had asked that they had seen in my registration form that I had said that I'm a podcaster. So he asked me, so you are actually a podcaster? And I said, yeah. So then he said, so what's the name of your podcast? And I said, The Abundant Self Podcast. And then the other people in the room, they were very excited about it. They even went and started searching for it, and they even wanted to play it for everyone to hear. And I remember I was cringing. I was just saying, no, please, no, because, without realizing it, I was downplaying the fact that I am a podcaster, the fact that, this podcast, I actually have something to say on this podcast, that I'm actually doing a great job on this podcast, and that people are actually being inspired by this podcast. And, because I had always thought that if I actually let other people celebrate my success, if I actually let other people experience, my abilities, experience my skills, experience, what it is, or rather what they can gain from being around me, or even from listening to my podcast, that it would be me trying to pretend that I'm better than other people when it's actually not true. So I am now beginning to learn how to, instead of downplay my own achievements, instead of downplay the kind of skills and abilities that God has put inside of me in order for it to just nourish the world, how I just need to celebrate them as well and allow other people to celebrate them too. Because even, for example, for this podcast, I really want people to listen to this podcast, not because I want my numbers to go up, but because I know that what I am talking about is meaningful, and it not only speaks to me as an individual, but it is of value to even the person listening to it. Some of the conversations we are having on this podcast, sometimes even I myself may not even understand what I'm talking about. But when I go back and listen to myself on the podcast, I get to learn something new, something that maybe I didn't even think that I would learn from myself. Because sometimes I just take time to listen to this podcast, to listen to an episode, to listen, like, for example, on this episode on handling burnout, after editing it, I'm also going to go back and listen to it and learn something, So that thing of downplaying myself, that thing of downplaying my abilities, downplaying my achievements, downplaying what I can do, honestly, I am leaving that behind in 2022. In 2023, I want to learn how to put myself out there, to be bold and confident, to speak about what I have done, what I can do, not as a means, of course, to make others feel intimidated, but because I am proud, rightfully so, of who I am and who I have become. Because the person that I was when this year began, I can assure you that she is not the same person speaking to you in this moment. I have grown. There are many times, of course, I fall back into the same mindsets, into the same old things that I'm trying to come out of. But that picking myself up every single time I fall, just trusting God, trusting His will, trusting what He has for my life and what He has put inside of me, that was not me in January. I mean, I have grown. And I am proud of that. And I am learning to own that, to own it, and to be proud of myself and to celebrate myself all the more. Well then, that is it for today's episode. Thank you so much, guys, for being here with me today. Like I said, this is episode 8 of the podcast. We have been talking about how to handle burnout, specifically how to learn how to say no. And I hope that this conversation has been meaningful to you, and it will be meaningful to the one you share it too. So do not forget to subscribe to our newsletter. By the way, if you haven't checked out our website, I have left a link to that on the show notes. We have a website for this podcast, so be sure to go on there. You can get to learn more about us, more about the episodes, just a little bit of content on the episodes, and also to subscribe to our newsletter. We are going to be launching our newsletter officially in January next year, hopefully, God willing. And yes, I'm sure that it is going to be a sounding board for you, where you will get to just review life's ideas, opinions, belief systems, everything, and just see how that can influence and inspire you to have life and life in abundance. Also, if you listen to our bonus episode, that is on, I think, the episode before this, we were talking about how we are now available on 7 listening platforms. So you can now listen to the Abundant Self podcast on Spotify. You can listen to us on Anchor, Google Podcasts. You can listen to us on Pocket Casts. You can listen to us on Castbox, on Stitcher, and on Amazon Music and Audible. I think I've mentioned all of them. Yeah, so be sure to check us out from wherever it is you get your podcast. And remember, the only way you can support us for now is, of course, by listening to our podcast, sharing our podcast, following and subscribing to us from wherever you get your podcast. You can also go ahead and follow us on our social media. We are on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Abundant Self. On Facebook at The Abundant Self, on Twitter at The Abundant Self Podcast, and on Instagram at The Abundant Self _podcast. So be sure to check us out, follow us, and engage with us more on there. And of course, as per usual, be sure to check out Buy by Spend, especially for today's episode where we have been talking about burnout. You can go check out the blog post on burnout, where we just talk about what burnout is, how to know whether you have burnout, how to handle burnout, and so on and so forth. Of course, if you find that post relevant, valuable to you, be sure to share it with your friends as well as this episode. Yes. So I look forward to seeing and hearing you in the next episode, where we are actually going to be covering part 2 of this episode. And we are going to be talking about why you really need to take that break, especially since we are going to be kicking off the month of December. And now that the year is drawing to an end, just talking about why you need to take a break, why you need to find time to rest and just rejuvenate, and some of the benefits there are. Yeah. So until next time, I hope to see and hear you in the next episode. Bye-bye. There you have it. This has been the Abundant Self podcast with me, Sharon Chabai. If this episode has been helpful to you, feel free to share it with your friends and family. We'd also love to hear from you. If you have any feedback or questions relating to today's episode, then go ahead and leave us a voice message on the hotline number in the show notes. Feel free to also rate and review us from wherever you get your podcasts. If you remember nothing else from today's episode, I hope you remember that you have been called to have life and life in abundance, and that I am rooting for you always.